For the longest time, I spent years studying and trying to figure out what the successful people had that I didn't and how I could go about acquiring that, because I saw so many people have so many stories like rags to riches. And also around 80% of millionaires today are all self-made millionaires. They're not people that inherited large sums of money or had cash flow or had real estate or had other blessings throughout their family. They literally started with nothing and they created themselves into self-made millionaires. And I was wondering, what is this X factor? Like, what is this one thing? Because I saw people in every walk of life in every different industry. Some people were 20 years old making $1 million. Other people were like 60, like Colonel Sanders. I think that guy was like pushing 70 when he actually made the breakthrough and then got to KFC. So there's all of these people in all of these different walks of life doing all of these different things. Some people it was sales, some people it was personal development, some people it was very, very good at a sport and they became a pro athlete. And I was just wondering, like, what is this thing? What is this thing? And it hit me one day, and it was actually while I was doing stuff. It never came to me while I was just sitting there and pondering and waiting for the answer to come, because for some reason, when you try to do that, when you manifest something and then you sit there and wait for it to show up, it never shows up. It's like scared too. So I decided, I was like, I'm going to go about my day, and eventually this thing that I'm searching for, this answer is going to flow in. I realized that it is exactly this. A successful person is taking action. Think about it this way. Look at how many times Tiger Woods must have hit the little ball with the stick. Look at how many fucking times he must have done that, okay? Now, do you think that Sidney Crosby or someone else that played in the NHL, do you think that they just showed up and they were automatically good? Yes, some of them do have an automatic gifted talent, but the overall grit and persistence that these people have to continuously show up, I remember, I think it was Michael Jordan. He would always practice like 1 hour before and then 2 hours after the players would leave. So let's say they would have some kind of meeting or some kind of practice from like 10 to 2. Well, he would show up at like 9. He would show up before them. He was there at like fucking 6 a.m. He was there until like 10 p.m. He would take breaks in between, of course, but the amount of reps and the amount of action that was put into creating those things is exactly where you need to be putting your focus. No one gets incredibly great at something by sitting on the sidelines and studying what the other people are doing. Yes, you can get great practical, book knowledge. Sorry, not practical knowledge. You can get good theory knowledge, but as we all know, in theory and in life are two completely different things. And so if I could give you one piece of advice today, it would be push yourself into a position where you need to take action on a certain thing and make that commitment to yourself and then follow through. We were having a great conversation this morning, and there was just a little gem that came up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such good information. This needs to be shared. This cannot be something that I keep to myself. And essentially, the whole like paradox of it is that when you're pushing yourself into action, there's like this initial anxiety. It feels like you're going to get on a roller coaster that's scary, or it feels like you're jumping off a cliff sometimes, depending on the gravity of the thing that you are trying to pursue at that moment. And that anxiety right there is what holds a lot of people back from even taking action in the first place. But sometimes you get yourself into situations, or life creates situations for you, and you're just like pushed into it and you don't want to, but you go through that anxiety, you go through the fear, you go through that, and then you follow through with courage, you do the thing, and then you get this amazing gratification on the other end. And this is exactly what the best drug in the world is that gratification that you get after being like, fucking right, I did it, I faced my fear, I went through with it, and I'm just fully happy and fully proud of myself that I actually did that. And that right there made me give up every other drug. If someone had to ask me, what made you give up alcohol? What made you give up taking prescription meds? What made you give up all of this other shit that you were doing in your life? Because I was living a shitty lifestyle before in terms of how many vices I had. I had so many vices. I was trying to run away from the pressure and the pain, and I hated my life and I hated who I was. And this one thing was the thing that made me be like, you know what, if I could have this drug, which to me is a real drug. After you get out of a cold plunge and you're like that feeling, if you know, you know, that is the feeling that I'm talking about when you push yourself through something. And this will have you coming back more and more and more. And also, it gets better as time goes on. A lot of drugs, they just get worse as time goes on. And then you're like chasing the dragon and you're trying to, get higher. Like you smoke weed for the first time, that shit hits. And then you're like, oh, this is great. Or you do drugs for the first time, you're like, this is incredible. I did basically nothing and my whole world is completely different. But then you build up a tolerance to that. And then you continuously have to do more to get that feeling. And I guess, yeah, you do have to push yourself more and more out of your comfort zone to get that same feeling. But this feeling, it just is the feeling. It doesn't get any less good. At the end of the day, you're still like, fuck yeah, I feel like a G. I do G shit. I have an amazing life. I'm proud of where I am. And when you can say that and actually feel that, sit with yourself in silence, and those are the types of thoughts that come to your mind, that is a different level of gratification that you're getting from your life. And just by going through that little process of you find a fear, you face it, and then you get the payoff, and then you get all of that dopamine and those endorphins after, just going through that, it's a pretty small price to pay, because considering you're not only feeling good now, you're feeling good later, you're feeling good like after the fact. You know, when you go out and you drink and then you're fucking hungover and you're like, oh yeah, I don't really like drinking and I don't really want to continue this in my life. That sucks. That's just a shitty feeling overall, okay? But when you get to the point of pushing yourself, doing something, getting the gratification, after you look back and you're like, wow, like I'm proud of that, and then you look back years later and you're like, wow, I was the type of person that did XYZ in my 20s, and that's how I spent my years, and that's what, filled me with life and gave me so many beautiful life experiences. It made me feel independent. It made me feel powerful. It made me feel like I was able to figure out things on my own, and it made me feel not like I don't need anyone in the sense of like I don't want people around, but honestly, if no one were to be there, I can figure it out because I'm capable of doing that. And that is the result of doing this little process over and over and over again. And that is also the whole fucking like building blocks. If I could break it down to you and give you like the Lego building blocks of how to build success in any area of your life, whatever your passion is, whatever your desire is, whatever that thing is for you that you're like, that is what I want. I don't know what draws me to that, but I just have a desire to do whatever. Doing those little things, like taking those fears, facing them, getting the good feeling from it, those are the building blocks to your success. That is literally the path. And at the end of the day, when you sit with yourself and you choose to do the easy thing, but it's the easy thing now and then it becomes hard later, you want to be able to sit with yourself at the end of the day and be like, you know what? Today I did the fucking hard thing. I did the hard thing now that made me uncomfortable. Now that's going to make me so comfortable and so happy with myself and so in alignment with my consciousness later on in my life. And that is exactly the feeling that you want to have at the end of the day.